broadcasting live at Left Forum, Pace University, New York City, March 16th, 2012. This is the open plenary of the Left Forum 2012. The speakers will start in just a few minutes at 6:30. Now the media is just making ready. And
How to tell if the tone is distorted? Yes, I don't know. It doesn't sound distorted to me. I mean, if I turn it down, I'm about a quarter. Just check your.
I'm going to show you Lorenzo. He's in occupied media. Lorenzo, you're occupied media?
Yeah.
I didn't recognize you. I think you put on a little few pounds.
No, I shaved.
Shaved your beard. That's what it is. I recognize your voice, though.
Yeah.
I look at you, quite often.
Yeah. That's cool.
I didn't talk with you yet over there at Occupy. Briefly.
Yeah.
Got a few suggestions on
Cool.
computers and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's great. I really like your setup. What are you?
This is live stream and you stream.
Yeah, you're live streaming with this?
This is I'm taping right now.
Oh, okay.
And 4 live streams.
Yeah, cool.
Collectively. I think I gave you.
Yeah, you gave me your slip, yeah.
You got that?
Yep.
Yeah. Just so you make sure you have something.
All right, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, I look at you guys all the time on media over there, at, Occupy Media. Also Timcast.
Yeah.
You know Tim, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I look at it a lot.
Thank you so
All
much.
right. And I'm just seeing you now.
Yeah, we should. Let's do it.
We're taking live at the Left Forum. We're just preparing for the opening preliminary, the beginning of the activities of Left Forum on Friday night at 6:30. The Left Forum has, with all the panels and that, they have like 1,400 speakers participating in the opening plenary here and the panels all on the weekend of March 16, 17, and 18. They have 400 different panels for that 1,400 speakers to participate in. I was just talking to, I just heard somebody mention that that was Lorenzo over there on the press, and I didn't really recognize him before because, I don't know, he said he shaved and trimmed his beard quite close, and looks like, a little bit, put on a couple pounds, and so I didn't quite recognize him. I recognized his voice from, but anyway, I said hello to Lorenzo. He's very active in covering Occupy activities. And he knows Tim Poole from Timcast, who was also from Occupy.
I hope we're not taking 2 spots, right? 1 spot?
Yeah.
Sorry. WBAI, excellent, good.
Lady looking in on the thing. Now the coordinator for the test. Yeah. We're making this tape. Recording live at left farm. Opening preliminary. I think it's supposed to begin at 6:30. Friday night, March 16th, on the Friday. I know you probably are hearing that quite a lot, but I want to make sure everybody knows.
We all saw that, Frank. Saw that on Frank.
Some people are sort of on stage. I'll zoom in on the stage. And pretty much I'm Bud, and we have the entrance of the speakers now. So if I can zoom in the you should be able to hear when they start speaking, they'll be speaking over the amplified speakers. It looks like there's enough amplification. Should be enough amplification that we can hear. This is first, like I said, it's first 1.12, and the theme is Occupy the System, Hunting Global Capitalism. These are the opening preliminary speakers for Friday night at Pace University in the Schimmel Auditorium. That's the the younger guy is the moderator. I have to let them speak now.
Welcome to the 2012 Left Forum. This is the largest Left Forum in its history. Last year we had 1,500 advance registrations. This year we have 2,600 advance registrations. We have over 400 panels and 1,400 speakers. We expect that by the time we do all of the calculations for this conference, we will have had close to 4,000 people here. It's my pleasure to begin with to welcome Chris Malone, who is a political science professor at Pace University, to give the greeting from Pace to this conference. Chris?
Good evening, everybody. I hope you're doing well. I am Christopher Malone. I'm the chair of the Department of Political Science here, and on behalf of the entire PACE community, I want to welcome you. I'm not going to take up too much of your time. You didn't come to listen to me speak. I'm looking forward to the discussion tonight. What I will say is that about 4 years ago, when I got a call from my doctoral mentor and my dear friend Francis Fox Piven, who I think is here somewhere in the audience, saying that the Left Forum needed a new home and would I help in bringing the Left Forum to Pace University. Well, obviously I jumped at that opportunity. My good friend and colleague Roger Salerno, a bunch of other faculty here, Megan and Nayak, Satish Kalori, Marianne Murphy, Sangeeta Rao, so many others took that opportunity and we ran with it. And it's 4 years later, and I'm so proud that we still are the host of this event, and let's hope that it goes on for another 40 or 400 years into the future. But I do want to say that the Left Forum should be congratulated as well, because I think that Stanley and Fran and Seth and all the members of the Left Forum somehow knew that within four short years, the most important social movement of our lifetime was happening just 3 blocks from here. So congratulations on your prescience, Stanley. It's been an amazing 6 months here at PACE. There have been dozens of our students who have been down to Zuccotti Park. We've had teach-ins. Our faculty are doing scholarship around Occupy Wall Street. And it's been a very exciting time. And we have the Left Forum as well. And this is just a great addition to all of that. So on behalf of the entire community, I want to thank the special events folks here, Allison Sakaris. I want to thank the President, Steve Friedman, Harriet Feldman, our Provost, our Dean, Nira Herman, who can't be with us tonight. I hope you all have a great weekend. I know it'll be a great weekend, and let the festivities begin. Thank you.
I'd like to now thank the hundreds of volunteers that participated in the planning and the execution of this conference. The Left Forum planning and execution activity takes place at the CUNY Graduate Center in my office. And aside from pretzels and Twizzlers, which are my payment for renting the office, that's the rent, they have to bring pretzels. I have been absolutely amazed by the work and by the dedication of the volunteers who have both appeared at the office and have worked in the field to secure this kind of attendance. This weekend we're going to have trade unionists, and we're going to have people from the Black Freedom Movement, and we're going to have people from the Occupy movement not only speaking but participating from the floor. We're going to have people from the feminist movement, and that didn't happen automatically. That didn't happen simply because there was a spontaneous outpouring. I wish it were true, but it's not true. It takes organizing, and one of the things that we have to say is that our volunteers are the heart of the organizing. Of course, we have an indefatigable, I pronounced it correctly, it's only the first time that I've ever really truly pronounced it correctly. The indefatigable, there it is again. Seth Adler, the coordinator, spent day after day after day, and he is the only full-timer for this conference and for its preparation. He is overworked and underpaid, but that is what movement activity is all about. If we ever achieve any degree of respectability, that's the time to close shop. Anyway, I want to then now introduce the members of the Left Forum Board, who I will ask to stand. If they're here, they should be in one place. Where? All right, well, please stand, because it's hard for people to see this. There's a lot of people in this room, please. These are the people who meet year-round, who plan this conference, who debate every issue that we have before us, who raise the money, at least participate in the raising of the money, and to a large extent are responsible in the last instance for the success of this program. All of the members of the Left Forum board, of which I am one, participate voluntarily, just like all the volunteers. Unlike corporate board members, we do not get paid for each attendance at a board meeting. In fact, we even pay our own fare. But it's very important for you to know that their names and their biographies are in the program. And I hope that you will consult them, because we've added some very new members to the board. It's not the same old anymore. And it's important for you to get acquainted with who they are. I have a few housekeeping issues, and then I will introduce our first speaker. The doors open at 7:30 tomorrow morning and 8 o'clock on Sunday. If you get there at 7:30, you probably won't experience long lines. But given the outpouring of support for this program, I really do urge you to come as early as possible. Please use the stairs when possible, so elevators are available to people most needing them. That's very, very important. I usually have, these days, because I've had a back surgery, I use elevators, and it's very disturbing not to be able to get on an elevator because people are on elevators. So I urge you to use stairs if you can. We also want you to be aware that we urge you to get ideas for sessions, to organize them for next year, starting now. Telling us is not the best way to go, given our limits and the need to organize the over 400 panels. If you can, write your suggestions down. If we have not done something that you think we ought to be doing, we are more than anxious to hear from you. Food will be generally available throughout the conference at the cafeteria on the first floor. And for those of you engaging Twitter, you can use the Left Forum Twitter hashtag. It is HASTA, H-A-S-T-A-G, Left Forum. HASTGLEFTFORUM. And one of our great regrets, while we appreciate the need for daycare, PACE can't house it for insurance reasons. We've had this dog us throughout the entire years of this conference and its predecessor, nor were we nearby centers available on weekends. We appreciate the need. We'll keep looking, but we cannot offer it, and that's a terrible deficit that we are very, very seriously trying to remedy. Please help the conference to run smoothly. All sessions end 10 minutes before the hour to allow time to move from panel to panel. And because we have so many panels this year, that 10-minute rule should be as strictly observed as possible, because it will be difficult for people to move around. And tickets for the Michael Moore evening on Saturday and the closing plenary on Sunday will be available on a first-come and first-served basis, starting each day at noon at the registration tables in the hallway. There will be overflow rooms available. And believe me, there will be overflow crowds for Michael Moore and for some other activities that are taking place. We are met in a very interesting moment. There are two things going on at the same time, and I think most of you are aware of it. But I think I have a responsibility to place our situation in some kind of a framework. On the one hand, there is a national phenomenon in the United States, and to a large extent in Western Europe as well, which has observed the resurgence of the right wing. They not only dominate the politics, which I think is second to their major domination, they dominate the ideological hegemony. everybody shifted to the right, and all the debates that we have now are debates that maybe some years ago we never would have entertained. We face a two-party system which is essentially, it has differences, yes, we can name those differences, a member of the Supreme Court who just voted for a restriction of the Miranda, one of Obama's appointees, with 5 other conservatives. But we have to take solace in that. But the truth of the matter is that every issue is now either a defense of what we have gained in the past, abortion, family planning, as it were, it used to be called, contraception. I mean, you feel like, are we back in 1942? No, seriously. That kind of defense that we're facing is very serious. And as a result of the defensiveness that we are forced into, what we defend to going forward, and I'm going to say it very clearly, a seriously flawed health benefits program whose main beneficiaries will be the insurance company. That's what we're forced to defend right now. And of course, what is obviously true is that Obamacare is Romney-care with some differences. We have to face that. I'm going to be short, but secondly, we have developed in this society, and you may disagree, and I'm speaking for myself, this is not the board's consensus, although there may be agreement on the board with some of the things I'm saying. We are living in this society with an increasingly militarized culture where the coercive power of the state dominates its legitimating power, if I may use the traditional phrase. They don't need to do the welfare state the way they used to. In the welfare state that they do is seriously crippled. We have over 200 military bases abroad. We still have a war in Afghanistan. If you think we're leaving Afghanistan, then you also believe in the tooth fairy. The dark clouds are gathering around the question of whether or not we're going to invade Iran. And you could trace a lot of this militarization to the fact that there is no will, as well as perhaps no political debate about how to meet people's needs. Not just the needs of the poor, the needs of all working people, the needs of the middle class. And when you can't meet people's needs, or won't meet people's needs, then what you have is the iron fist, and that's what we're beginning to see more and more and more of. That's on one hand. The militarization of American society also extends, for example, to the education system, and those who have any familiarity with public education in New York City as well as in the country, and racial profiling on the streets of New York City that our great police commissioner Ray Kelly defends every chance he can. But in the schools, we have nothing less than a police state. Kids are regimented. The basic function of teachers is to teach, to test, and discipline kids. There's no education going on to speak of in many of our schools. There are exceptions, of course, but that's the exceptions to the rules. And then on the other hand, we have the exhilarating experience of the Occupy movement. The exhilarating experience of the Occupy movement does not only consist in protest and resistance, but it consists in the enormous capacity for innovation of the activists of the Occupy. They don't simply march up and down, holding their placards of protest and of resistance. What they have also done is said that the real question, at least a real question in the Occupy movement, is whose space is public space? Does it belong to the corporations? Does it belong to the cops? Or does it belong to us? And so we have the obligation as well as the possibility, they say, of occupying public space. Occupying public space may not stop with Zuccotti Park and places like it. It may end up being occupations of factories, of hospitals, of schools. And so when people say these are the darkest times, I have to vehemently disagree. And I probably should not quote Charles Dickens. I know. Bill Tabb is our internal cop. And I appreciate that. That's what I should do. I should probably not, and this was going to be my last remark, but this was. But these are the best of times and these are the worst of times. Both of these things have to be kept in mind as we go forward, both at this conference and go forward together. So let me get down to business. What did I do with my? I know, here it is. We have a special guest who will be our first speaker. He is Nemo Bassi, is the Executive Director of the Environmental Rights Action Friends of the Earth, Nigeria, and Chair of Friends of the Earth International. He also coordinates Oil Watch International, a global South network that campaigns against human and environmental abuses related to the oil and gas extractive activities. He co-founded the Environmental Rights Action in 1993 in response to widespread environmental degradation and human rights abuses in Nigeria. Bassi has authored books on the environment, architecture, management, and poetry. His poetry collections include We Thought It Was Oil, But It Was Blood, and I Will Not Dance to Your Beat. His latest book, To Cook a Continent, deals with the destructive extractive activities and the climate crisis in Africa. He was a recipient of the 2010 Rights Livelihood Award, and also known as the Alternative Nobel Prize.
Good evening, brothers and sisters. Good evening, friends. Good evening, in-laws and outlaws. Thank you, Stanley, for that friendly introduction and for all the information that we got from the introductory remarks. It is a great pleasure for me to be at the Left Forum. I believe the best way to work is left, the best way to live is left, and the best way to do things is left. Unfortunately, the world has gone so far right, and everything is going so far wrong, that it's time to change direction, and the direction to go is left. I bring greetings from occupied Nigeria, and I think it's time for us to occupy the planet. Because we are at a point in history where injustice has been elevated to the status of a creed. We're at a point in history where falsehood is truth. A point in history where humans negate all that has been learned over centuries of interactions with Mother Earth. We're at a point in time when imperialism doesn't come like sheep in wolf's clothing. It comes with fangs extended and claws stuck into your back. We've got to a time where wages are so poor that for the reproduction of labor, workers have to subsidize with their own blood. We've come to a time in history, a very important moment in history, that we must take our stand and make the change that is needed. At this point, I bring to mind the conclusions reached by Frantz Fanon in 1956, when he sent in his resignation letter to the French government. He said, and I quote, "The function of a social structure is to set up institutions to serve man's needs. A society that drives its members to desperate solutions is a non-viable society, a society to be replaced. We cannot watch while the 1% fat cats continue to wallow in and feast on the misery of the 99%. We cannot tolerate a system that sees 1 billion people go to bed hungry every day and about 2 billion go without electricity. Across the African continent, and indeed the global south, there is a rapid march of the forces of neocolonialism, playing out the script of land grab, seed grab, soil grab, and sea grab. And right now, a critical struggle is for us to decolonize the atmosphere. Because as we all know, the atmosphere has been colonized with carbon, to the extent that the small fraction that is left is still being debated about who will occupy it and who would pollute it. And we are saying it's time to stop the pattern of so-called progress and development and growth that is driving the planet to the brink. It's time to live with the knowledge that we have only one planet Earth. There's no planet B, as we say. There's no need to pretend that we can move from here to live on Mars or on Venus or Mercury or somewhere else. This is what we've got. And it's only the 1% who could afford the right to go into space. And we won't let them escape after they destroy planet Earth. I come from a country that is heavily degraded by the extractive industry, some of whom have their bases right here in the belly of the beast. The pursuit of crude oil keeps generating wars in the world and dislocating political systems and cultures. And all this happened primarily for the benefit of petro-military industrial complex and for the consolidation of neoliberal hegemonies, which we must confront and stop. Oil can be left in the soil and coal in the hole, and tar sands in the land. The world has to move seriously and quickly to a pattern of development based on renewable energies. Sometimes when we say the oil should be left in the soil, people think it's a pipe dream. But I tell you, the people of Ogoniland in Nigeria have enforced oil in the soil since 1993. And nobody's going to reopen the oil wells of Ogoniland, except first of all, they clean up Ogoniland. And by independent assessment, it requires a lifetime to clean up Ogoniland. But we cannot despair. What we demand is that the cleanup should be done now. Now, we've seen other examples of places where oil has been kept in the soil. We see the Yasuni ITT in Ecuador. We see Lofoten in Norway. We see in South Sudan, the newest country on the planet. To avoid the exploitation and the grabbing of their oil by Sudan, they've decided to leave the oil in the soil until they can build a pipeline, of course. But it is very encouraging that this can be done by a nation who has very little resources. So if a nation like South Sudan can leave the oil in the soil, even if it's just for 2 days, then the whole world should know that it's time to move away from fossil fuels. And we need to demand this. At the Durban Climate Conference in November and December 2011, it was finally displayed to the whole world that the multilateral negotiation systems in the world have been totally captured by corporations. And political leaders are nothing more than shoe shine boys for corporations. And so whatever the corporations want, that's what they do. And so the corporations say, don't cut emissions. Let us continue to pollute. And so they say, okay, we're going to cool down till 2015 before we begin to negotiate again. And maybe 2020, we can begin to put what we negotiate into practice. What a shame to political leaders in the world, that they will resort to kicking the can down the road, while poor people, vulnerable countries around the world are already heavily impacted by global warming. When Africa is impacted with desertification, famine is already taking root in parts of the continent, and small island states are already going underwater. Climate refugees are not imaginary people. And so the political system must be liberated from the clutches of transnational corporations. What we're seeing now can best be characterized as global apartheid, and it must be confronted. When leaders abdicate their responsibility to protect and cede their authority to corporate hawks, it is time for us to forge new ways and processes, not only for the emergence of genuine leaders, but also for the exercise of leadership. In a few weeks, world leaders will be meeting in Rio, Brazil, not to remember what happened in 1992 Earth Summit, but to enthrone market environmentalism. They go to meet in Rio to set out the final parameters to commodify Mother Earth. And we should look at our leaders when they begin to move, to tell them, look, we cannot accept using the planet as a tool or as an instrument in the marketplace, because we don't own the earth. We are all children of Mother Earth. It is really disturbing the way political leaders and the corporations have grabbed all the beautiful words that we used to know. Now I don't even know what the color green means. We have a green economy. You see trees as carbon stocks, not as trees. Forests, no longer as forests, but as reserves for carbon sequestration. What has gone wrong with mankind? I believe we've gone so far right, we don't even know where to turn back. And we need to encourage, we need people, we need marshals, left forum marshals, to help redirect our leaders who are lost in the jungles of capital. The word sustainable development is no longer recognizable. When I hear sustainable in official circles, I think of blindfold or anesthesia. Because we're doing something sustainable, so I go to sleep and believe them. And while I sleep, they are draining my blood. The pressure to keep minimizing government, have you heard that? Government is too big, we have to shrink government. What does it really mean? It means taking power away from the public realm and concentrating power in a few private hands. And you know, they will redefine democracy as government of the 1%, by the 1%, for the 1%. But do you accept that? That is crazy. That is not democracy. In Nigeria, we will say them all crazy. Honestly, we've hit the bottom. And the only safe way to go is a path of harmony with Mother Earth. And we, the people, at this left forum, can and must provide the needed balance. This is an inescapable challenge. It's also a moral duty, and we must make it happen. We have seen the spontaneous uprisings from North Africa and in the Arab world. We have seen the growing global Occupy movement, and yes, the January 12th uprising in my home country, Nigeria, clearly indicating that people power must be regained and can be regained. Walking left is the right way to go. Let us work together in solidarity as we occupy the broken system, cause it to erupt and enthrone people's sovereignty. The time is right, the situation is right, and it's perhaps the chance of a lifetime, and we have to seize the moment. I thank you for your attention.